Good afternoon and welcome to the Pittsburgh City Council's public hearing for Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, relative to Bill 2022-0223. Madam Clerk, will you please read the purpose of the hearing?
Bill 223, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code, Title 9 Zoning Code, Article 4, Planning Districts, 908 Public Realm Districts, and 90901 Specially Planned Districts, and Article 5, Use Regulations, Chapter 911, Primary Uses, Section 91102, Use Table in Section 91104, Use Standards to remove the review of the sidewalk cafes from the zoning code.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And for the record, we are joined today by Council Member Kraus. And is there anyone on the phone, Madam Clerk? No. And when earlier, a few moments ago, we had Councilman Lavelle was in chambers. We started the meeting a few minutes late, so he had to leave, but he was here. Our first order of business will be the introduction presentation by City Planning and Domi. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please, for the public and begin your presentation?
Sure. My name is Kate Rakes, and I'm a planner with Zoning and Development Review.
And my name is Caroline Seifert, and I'm a policy analyst with the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
Thank you both for being here. Do you want to begin your presentation, the purpose?
Sure. I just have a couple of words to explain the legislation. So in February of 2022, Council Bill 2022-0073 was passed by City Council and signed by the mayor, changing the regulations around sidewalk cafes, and it changed the review to have it primarily in the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, DOMI. And these changes in some way were duplicative and in other ways in conflict with the regulations in the zoning code. But all of the important regulations, such as minimum sidewalk width, are now included in the DOMI regulations. In addition, sidewalk cafes are still regulated by permits, licenses, and inspections. So this change will actually increase efficiency in review, as only 2 city departments will need to review sidewalk cafes. And just as a reminder, sidewalk cafes, what we're talking about here is out in the public right-of-way. Any sort of accessory dining that's on private property would still be regulated by zoning. This would only affect sidewalk dining in the actual city right-of-way. An amendment before City Council today removes sidewalk cafes from the zoning use table as a primary use. And then there's also numerous other places that it's mentioned in the zoning code where it might be permitted, like in public realm districts, specialty plan districts, and then again, the use standards in the use table. So just it amends so many sections just because it's excising the sidewalk cafes completely from the zoning code.
Did you want to add anything on the DOMI end?
No.
Councilman Kraus, do you have any questions?
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Please.
So Kate, help me understand, if we are removing the terminology of sidewalk cafe from zoning code, what are they known as?
So, I mean, it wouldn't, basically zoning isn't going to regulate outdoor dining in the public right-of-way. It's still regulated on private property, but basically all of the regulations, licensing, permitting, all that sort of stuff will happen with DOMI and PLI.
Right.
So
No,
they will own those regulations. So basically, zoning will just be silent on sidewalk cafes.
I understand
Yeah.
that. What are we going to call them? If they're not sidewalk cafes, are they streeteries? What does the definition section say? What are we eliminating and what are we creating?
Yeah.
So, the new regulations that were passed back in February that update the legislation to move everything to DOMI and change the terminology to outdoor dining and retail in the public right-of-way, and there are subcategories both in the sidewalk and then in the cartway, which would be those outdoor dining activities that you see in the parking lane.
Right. So the streetery exists on public right-of-way, but in the street.
Yes, so the outdoor dining and retail in the cartway is what would commonly be referred to.
It's called a cartway?
Yeah, the cartway, or
Okay.
yeah.
So if it exists as an extension of premise on a sidewalk in the public right-of-way, what is it called?
It would be outdoor dining and retail in the sidewalk.
Okay. So some of the problems that we're experiencing is within the regulation that the street furniture must be removed by a certain hour at close of business. Can you tell me whether or not that regulation still exists in the new language?
That provision was not included in the new legislation.
Right, right. I knew that. I needed to get it out there on the record. Here's what we're experiencing. If furnishings are not removed and the applicant or the owner or the responsible business is not there to manage that extension of their premise, then it becomes a haven for people to hang out late at night, eat pizza, open fifths of liquor, sit and drink, smoke reefer, whatever they might feel like doing till 4 and 5 in the morning. And so my phone rings with people saying, what the hell is this? So there has got to be a way to provide provision for either the street furniture to be removed or managed. One cannot argue that they want all the benefit of the extension of that occupancy to make additional revenues without bearing any of the responsibility to manage its impact. So if people who have extension of premise wish to sit out there or hire security to be in those places at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, great. But there has to be a provision that this is not something that we can just dump in a police officer's lap. The last recourse of not effective planning is to just say, oh, well, let's just give it to the police. They'll deal with it. We can't do that. We have to find a way to make certain that either the furnishings are removed or the person who has made the application understands they have a responsibility to manage that extension after hours. As long as it's theirs, they own it. So they either have to have security, they have to find a way to rope it off or chain it off or find some way to keep crowds from collecting. We have all, and I'll speak to Carson Street alone, we have worked diligently over the years to create mechanisms for an orderly exodus once everything calms down. The last thing we want to do is to have people continue to hang around, stay on the street, well past 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's counterproductive to the peace and tranquility of people that just want to live there in peace, right? And so, we've resisted things like having street vending take place, where someone has all the opportunities to generate revenue without any of the responsibilities. So if you're out there and you're vending, you don't have to provide tables and chairs, you don't have to provide waste receptacles, you don't have to provide sanitation facilities, you don't have to provide security. You just get to make money, and then we hand it off to police officers, tell neighbors, you just have to live with it, and if you don't like it, call 911. It's not acceptable. We can't do that. So whatever provisions we need to provide to make certain that either the furnishings are removed or they are have provision to provide security or management has to be in that legislation.
And DOMI has the ability to issue extra guidance along with the legislation, and we are looking to include in there provisions that address this. And we will also be holding a training for business owners on proper stewardship of the right-of-way to hopefully address some of these issues.
But with all due respect, the phone calls come to me at 1, 2, and 3 o'clock in the morning. Why is this going on? We don't have inspectors out to make certain that those provisions are enforced, that people understand their responsibilities and follow through with them, right? A phone call comes to me, then I have to deal with it on a Monday morning when everything has already happened and it's all said and done and over with. We don't have anybody, inspectors out there to deal with it as it's happening, right? And so we just continue this cycle of ineffectiveness because there's no one there to deal with it when it's happening. So I'm gonna insist that we, even if we have to find provisions where we create specific districts by which these provisions have to be in place, but when you have a burgeoning business district like East Carson, and you have provisions, let's just even say for like 100 extra people to hang around till 4 o'clock in the morning, sitting at tables and drinking liquor or falling asleep or eating pizza or whatever. It creates havoc for the peace and tranquility of the people who just want to live there. That's what I came to say.
And I'm glad you said it, because now I don't have many questions, but after hearing what you said, this won't go on the agenda until you're satisfied. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I guess, unless, yeah, it
Oh,
is.
I'm sorry. Oh, I apologize. I apologize.
What are you doing here? No,
I am
We
so
do
sorry.
have
There's 3 speakers.
thank you.
Clara Weibel? Clara? Kate Irvin?
Hi, Kate.
Kate, I'm so sorry.
Before, so this is an
And
interesting
it was a
experience.
great welcome I gave you. I apologize. You can take a couple more seconds.
No, not at all. I'll keep my comments brief, but good afternoon. I'm Kate Irvin. I'm the Director of Placemaking and Activation for the Oakland Business Improvement District. So I oversee our planning, mobility, placemaking activities, as well as our special events. And I'm speaking today to affirm OBID's support of Bill 2022-0223 to remove the review of sidewalk cafes from the zoning code, which will serve to concentrate the process under this new outdoor dining program reviewed by DOMI and PLI. So OBID advocates for the health and the vitality of the Oakland community. And as many of you know, our communities were significantly challenged by the pandemic. Small businesses are vital to the fabric of Oakland, and they make streets interesting and active places for the economic health of a place. Outdoor dining has been an essential way to support small businesses over the last 2 years, and the ability for restaurants to leverage outdoor seating has been essential for their survival. And it's also provided an option for individuals who are still uncomfortable dining indoors to continue to enjoy the fantastic restaurants that Oakland calls home. We also know that outdoor dining and activation of small businesses is something that residents and visitors have expressed strong support for. By removing the review of sidewalk cafes from the zoning code to concentrate the approval and permitting of all outdoor dining activities under DOMI and PLI, we believe that a more cohesive and holistic approach will be created, which will also simplify and streamline the process for all involved. We do also advocate for inclusion and ensuring that Oakland is accessible for all. We support the ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code, but we also ask that the city continue to work with the City-County Task Force on Disabilities and Oakland for All, both of which OBID is actively involved in, to ensure that the sidewalks, and particularly the sidewalk cafes, remain accessible for all in Oakland. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Can I add additional comment? If
Yes,
our speakers are exhausted?
and our last registered speaker is Yvonne F. Brown. And Ms. Brown is not in the audience. And so is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address City Council? Seeing none, we'll move on to council members.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to make it perfectly clear for the record that I'm in support of the changes that have come to the legislation, and do believe that they are necessary and effective, and I want to do everything in my power on the record to support the small business and be as creative as we can be to support outdoor dining. No question about it. Oakland Avenue comes to mind, and it was amazing what was set up on Oakland Avenue during the pandemic, and was a delightful outdoor space. And I personally did not receive any complaints about people inhabiting that space after hours. That operated perfectly, whether there were people that were assigned specifically to manage or monitor the space. I'm not suggesting that something like that needs to be broken down every night, because it is sort of under the purview of a business improvement district, a number of businesses around it, clearly maintained and watched, and it was a very, very interesting, innovative, productive. I went there quite often to enjoy the space that was created there. So maybe what we need to look at is perhaps, I don't know, creating specific, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but find ways to make certain areas abide by the fact that they have to be off the street. I'm not sure exactly how best to do that. But my door's open. I'm willing to work with you, whatever we need to do to get it on. I don't want to be an obstructionist by any means, but this far into the new legislation and the summer ahead of us, and I'm holding my breath every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. I would love to get ahead of this before it gets out of hand. Okay? Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman, and I want to acknowledge that Councilman Wilson's done a tremendous amount of work on this, but this will always be a piece of legislation that I remember you bringing to the forefront in City Council. So I just want to thank you for your work on this as well, which is why I want to be respectful of the fact that you have an interest in this. So we will not put it on the agenda for this week coming up, but we will hopefully, you'll be able to work with others to come to some compromise. Okay? Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you,
We're
everyone.
out of here.